Hello there and welcome to our webinar today. This is all about timesheet entry in Sage 50 Payroll. My name's Duncan. I'll be hosting and presenting the session today, and I am joined by my colleague Sarah, who's standing by in the background, ready and waiting to answer any questions. Let's now take a look at what we'll cover in today's webinar. So I'm going to begin with an introduction explaining what the timesheet entry feature is and how that works. We're then going to take a look at the steps to set up and process hourly payments using timesheet entry. So essentially choosing which of your payments and deductions you want to include in the timesheet entry mode. Once we've been through some demos of using timesheet entry, we're then going to take it a step further by looking at importing timesheets. So you can easily create templates and import hours worked from an Excel or CSV file. And then we're going to finish with a run through of some of the further support available, including some of our other quick learn webinars, how to access our help center, and some of the courses available on Sage University. So let's get things underway with a quick introduction to timesheet entry. So timesheet entry is a quick and simple way for you to enter hours worked for your hourly-based payments. So rather than having to go through one employee at a time, as you might do in enter payments, you will see all employees selected in one grid, and then a column for each of the payments or deductions that are hourly based, where you can simply type in the hours worked. So ideal if you are working from physical timesheets. Now, as well as this, you can import timesheet payments from Excel or CSV files, which we will show you later on in the demo. So that would be a great way of avoiding kind of duplication of effort, maybe avoiding errors caused by manual entry. So main benefits of timesheet entry are the time-saving element on data entry, whether you're doing that manually or even if you're importing the hours. So it can all be done from one screen without having to save each employee individually. So that's a quick look at what the timesheet entry screen looks like on the screenshot, but let's work through the setup steps. So this is really simple. All you would need to do to set up timesheet entry is to decide which of your payments and deductions, if applicable, should be included in the timesheet entry option. And there's a tick box in the pay element setting that you can select. You need to make sure that these payments are assigned to the relevant employees, and we would suggest reviewing the default rates of pay, because with timesheet entry, you're only going to be entering hours. The rates are assumed to be correct, so make sure the correct defaults are entered in the employee records. And then it's just a case of entering the hours or number value using that timesheet entry screen. So let's take a look at that. I'm going to bring the slides down, and we will jump into a demo. So let me just bring Payroll up on screen. Now I'm just going to switch to a company where I have a mixture of employees. I have some who are weekly paid, and I also have some monthly paid employees. My weeklies are all paid with hourly rates. So they do some basic contracted hours, and they may have sort of overtime at various premium rates. And my next weekly pay date in this particular example is going to be the 8th of August. So we've got that all set up, and then I can switch obviously between my weeklies and monthlies. So my monthly paid employees get a fixed salary, but they do have some hourly or unit-based payments as well that we're going to use in timesheet entry. Now, before we go into timesheet entry itself, let's check the pay element settings. So to find these, we'll start from the company tasks in the bottom left corner, and then access pay elements here on the left. So if you came to our factored payments webinar yesterday, some of these payments will look familiar, but handily, some of them are hourly or unit based. So these are the ones that we want to include in the timesheet entry screen. And the setting for this, if you edit the pay element, is here towards the bottom of the pay element settings. So we've got a tick in the box to include basic hourly in the timesheet entry screen. We've done the same with our overtime payments. So they are also included in timesheet entry. But for those payments that are not hourly or unit-based, for example, commission, I have cleared the box to include in timesheet entry because the unit we would enter for commission payments would generally be 1, and then we would enter the rate being the amount of commission they've received. So similar for bonus, I'm not including that one. But the remainder of the payments, I've got a couple of other overtime payments, but I also have an expenses payment where we pay a mileage rate for employees using their private cars for business use. We pay them 45 pence per mile. And with that being a unit-based payment, you could also treat it as an hourly payment for timesheet entry purposes. And instead of entering hours worked, you're entering the miles that you're reimbursing. So just a slightly different example of a type of payment that might be included on timesheets. So once you've flagged the appropriate pay elements as being included in timesheet entry, you would return to your payroll tasks and set your next pay date. So mine will be the 8th of August for these weekly paid employees. I'm then going to select the employees that I want to pay. And then working down the payroll tasks, we've got the option for timesheet entry, which is just before enter payments, which is kind of the usual way of entering payments. And if I click on the timesheet entry option, you can see it's opened up this screen, which can be maximized. So I can make that full screen. And what it's come up here for my 5 weekly paid employees is it's picked out the payments that are allocated to them that are included in timesheet entry. I've already got my default 35 hours for the basic hourly pay. And at the moment, it's retaining the overtime values from the previous month. So what I could do is I could just go ahead and overtype these figures with any overtime that has been earned in this month. Or there is an option where you can clear the values first. You can use the reset payments wizard. You could set the values to defaults, for example, and then you'd be starting from kind of all zeros for your overtime, and they can then be entered like so. Now, if you did have any deductions that are hourly or unit-based that you're including in timesheet entry, they could be found on the deductions tab. So I don't in this example. And once you've entered the timesheet information for that period, let's just put a bit of double time in for that employee. You've got options of kind of keeping a copy of this grid, either by sending it to Excel or by using the print option at the bottom. So if you want to sort of keep a record of what you've entered in this screen, use these 2 options, and to save the values, simply click Save. So just checking the Enter Payment screen now, because I've already entered the overtime hours in timesheet entry. You'll see they have pulled through to this screen. And it just means if there were additional payments, things like bonuses, commissions that you needed to enter in this screen, you could go ahead and do that, safe in the knowledge that your overtime payments have already been kind of entered from the timesheets and saved. And obviously, if they don't have a set number of contracted hours, the timesheet would tell you the number of hours to pay. And that again can be quickly entered in the timesheet entry screen. So that's an example with my weekly paid employees. I'm also going to show you my monthlies. So if I just set my monthly pay date, which is going to be the 31st of August, and then select the employees that I want to pay. I will show you the reset payments wizard just to start with, because if there were any previous values in the last period that you want to sort of clear or set to defaults, you can do so using the reset payments wizard. So this is found again in the payroll tasks just before timesheet entry. And when you run through reset payments, you should always select the option to selectively reset, because that gives you more control over what information will be cleared or set to default. And then I would just be looking mainly at the hours or number column. And what I would want to do is to have these all set back to the default values, which for overtime would be 0. For things like basic, if they had some contracted basic hours as their default, it would set back to that. So I have actually got all of the hours set to default. I could then complete this wizard. And if I now go into timesheet entry, again, this could be resized just so you can see what you need to. And we can see that we now have mileage and overtime payments that we can enter in this way. So notice that some of these squares are shaded a little bit darker. All this indicates is that that particular pay element isn't assigned to the employee. So if I was going through mileage, I've only got 3 employees that generally claim it. I could sort of work through, type the number of miles I'm reimbursing in, and I could do something similar there for the overtime. So you get the idea there on how to do manual entry with timesheet entry. And again, I can print, send to Excel to keep a record of this, or save the hours that I've entered. But I do want to take it a step further, and we'll take a look at the process of importing the timesheets. So before we go back to that demo, a quick recap of setting up timesheet entry. It's dead simple. First of all, select which payments should be included in timesheet entry. So review your pay element settings, tick the box. You can include deductions in timesheet entry as well. So if you had anything unit-based that you deducted, I'm trying to think off the top of my head of an example, but if you did have a deduction like that, maybe on unpaid hours or something like that, it could be entered as using timesheet entry as well. You're assigning the relevant pay elements to your employees, checking you're happy with the default rates that are being used, and then of course entering the hours and number within timesheet entry. So just to expand on the feature a little bit now, I'd like to talk about importing timesheet payments. So if you do have employees that work variable hours, there's a good chance that that information might be stored in a spreadsheet or perhaps exported from another system as a CSV file. And if you have the data in that sort of format, it is pretty simple to create a template and import the timesheet payments into your payroll. So that would be handy if you've got a much larger payroll than the one that I'm working with. But I will show you a demo just so that you kind of understand the concept. So steps I'm going to work through is showing you how to create an import template from the existing timesheet entry screen. And the advantage of doing this is that you will have all of the correct column headers for the relevant pay elements that you're going to be using. You can then make changes to that spreadsheet, for example, adding any additional columns that might be useful. And a good example there would be the employee's name. Someone would fill in that Excel sheet or the CSV file, entering the total number of hours that need to be imported into the period, and then we can run through the data import wizard, or advanced data import is the one that I'm going to use because that takes Excel files and that will get the information in. So let's try and put some of that to practice now. So first thing to show you is how to create the templates. So for this, I'm just going to select all of my employees, just as I'm showing you how to create them. We're going to go into the timesheet entry option. And if I just make that full screen, we can see with this group of employees, these are the payments that are being used for timesheet entry. Now, you remember at the bottom of the screen, we had these output options. So we can send exactly what we're seeing here to Excel, which will give you an Excel copy of that grid and all of the hours that have been entered. We also have this create template option. And if I click onto this, it's going to connect to Excel. And you can see it's opened up an Excel file for me, just a temporary one here. And the bit that I'm most interested here in are these column headings. So they start with a number, which indicates the payment reference, and then a description. And if you use these as column headings in the file that you're going to import, it's going to import the hours against the correct pay elements. Now, other things that we've got in here is the employee reference and works number. So at least one of these fields is required to do an import. But this template itself doesn't actually include any employee names. So what you might find useful is to actually send this grid to Excel as well. As you can see, that's popped up there for me. And here we've got the list of names as well. So you could combine the name column with the import columns, and you can create your own spreadsheet where you would record the hours worked. Now, I've already done some of this, so I'm going to cancel out of the timesheet entry screen, and I'm going to bring up an Excel file that I created earlier. So I'm storing it all in Excel, and I've split it into two sections. So I've got this one that I'm going to import timesheet information for my weekly paid employees. So I'm using the employee reference, and I've copied in the name column. And then I've got the basic and overtime rates using these column headers that came from the template. And I've also left the notes in as well, so I can record notes in enter payments. So that's been filled in for the current week for these employees, which means I can easily import these values. The other one I've created is for my monthly paid employees. So they have different pay element types. And I've got these column headings again from Create Template. So employee reference and name. We've got some mileage that we're going to import, got a bit of overtime at the various rates. And let's just add a note in to show you that one. So we're going to just note that they've attended a conference, hence the overtime and the mileage. So once you have your information in a format that can be imported, remember you need at least an employee reference or works number and the payment types that you want to import, so these columns here. I'm going to use the advanced data import, and that's going to import that information into Payroll. So starting with my weeklies, first thing I'll do is I'll just reset the payments just to clear out the values that were there before. So I'm going to set them all to defaults just here. And you'll see in timesheet entry, we've now just got the kind of default basic hours with no overtime entered. And then to import this information from the Excel file I created, I would go to File, and I would choose Advanced Data Import. So this is the option that can accept Excel files. I'd click onto Next, and I'm choosing the option to import timesheet payments. I would then browse to the file that I want to import. So it's stored on my desktop, and it's the timesheets to import file. That's what I've called it. It has a header row, so I've got that box ticked. And because this Excel file has multiple tabs, it's just going to ask me which tab I want to import. So for this first one, I'll go for weekly hours. And then it will automatically map the employee reference, the notes, and these three payments that were included on the import file. So the advantage of using the template is it maps automatically to the payroll field it's expecting. If I click onto finish, that's imported the records. You can see it's updated these values. If I jump into timesheet entry now, these are the hours that were shown on that spreadsheet. It also means when I come to do my monthlies, so I'll just set my monthly pay date. I can use that monthly spreadsheet as well. So I'll just reset what I've got in there at the moment. So nothing. in timesheet entry right now. And again, if I go to File and Advanced Data Import, again, importing my timesheet payments. It's the same file as before. I don't even need to browse to that. And then it's the monthly tab that I'm working from this time. And again, it's picked up, automatically matched the relevant fields here. So mileage and some overtime rates. I want to hit finish. That's updated the records, including some notes for employee 4. So checking timesheet entry. These have come from the spreadsheet I imported. And then going into enter payments, we'll see the same information here. And I think for one of these employees, it's dropped the notes in the notes section in enter payments as well. So that in a nutshell is timesheet entry. So just to sort of recap some of the steps there in importing the timesheet payments, I have linked to our full guide on the data import option, but it's really simple to create a template from the timesheet entry screen. So select the employees that you want to include in the template, go into timesheet entry, create template. You can also send that information to Excel if you want to grab additional information like the names. Once you've created that import file, someone needs to fill in the hours that you want to import. And then you can either save it as a CSV or you can keep it as an Excel file. And then through the data import wizard, you would choose the option to import your timesheet payments. And if you're using advanced data import, you can import from an Excel file. You can choose the tab. There's more than one sheet that you want to import from. So that is about it for what we're going to cover, but as promised, we're going to stick around until the end of the half hour just to make sure that we have answered any questions that have come through. And I'll just spend a moment now just running through some of the further support that's available, including some of our other Quick Learn webinars taking place this month. So this August is all about our Quick Learn format, bite-sized 30 minutes webinars focused on handy features. Today was timesheet entry. This afternoon, we have one on report selections. And we are also repeating the other sessions that we ran earlier this week towards the end of the month. So if you want to join us for any of them, they're all free to attend. Get yourself signed up at sage.co.uk/webinars. Just to let you know, our help centre is your one-stop shop for all things payroll knowledge. If you go to sage.co.uk/help in a browser or click any help icon in Sage 50 Payroll, you'll get straight to the help centre from there. You can search our knowledge base, read the support guides, and if you do need to contact our support team, just choose the topic you need help with and you will find a get in touch link with the best contact details. And a quick shout out to Sage University, sageu.com. This is where you'll find our e-learning courses, certification and bite-sized learning. So plenty to get stuck into there. If you haven't already, you can sign up now at sageu.com. So for the remaining couple of minutes, we will stay online, looking out for any questions that might come through. We've had a few through that Sarah has already answered. So there was a question around kind of using deductions in timesheet entry, which of course can be done if you've ticked the box to include that deduction. It is of course the hours or number value that could be entered. So the rate would be picked up from the default rate for that deduction. And just a follow-up question on there on whether the deductions could be gross or net. Yes, they could be pre-tax or post-tax. So we had some examples of payments. Our mileage payments were not taxable. The overtime payments were. Same principle applies to deductions as well. So if there's a unit that you need to quickly enter for a deduction, a unit or hour, you certainly can use timesheet entry. Just to let you know that we will send you a follow-up email after today's webinar. Usually comes through in about an hour's time. It includes a recording of this session, so you'll be able to rewatch anything that you may have missed. If you want to get a closer look at that import process, for example, don't forget to download the handouts if you want them before you leave. You can grab those from the piece of paper icon. And just one last ask from me. When you exit the webinar, we will invite you to take our webinar survey, or there'll be a link to it in the follow-up email. I'd love to know what you thought of these shorter sessions. Any feedback that you may have or ideas for future webinars are always very welcome. And we read all of your feedback to help us improve these sessions moving forward. So if you can spare a minute just to complete the survey, I'd very much appreciate that. So we've got a couple of minutes left. We will stay online until past in case there are any further questions. So get them submitted now if you'd like an answer to those. If not, I just wish you well for the rest of the week. If you come into report selections this afternoon, I'll see you at 2. A reminder about the survey when you leave. If you could fill that in, that would be great. And look out for that follow-up email arriving later today. But on behalf of myself and Sarah, thanks so much for joining us this morning. And we look forward to seeing you on some other webinars in the future. So goodbye for now.